I never thought I'd find myself thanking my sister for stealing my fiancé. But life has a strange way of turning things around. When that wedding invitation arrived with both their names embossed in gold, I wanted to set it on fire. Instead, I arved yes and showed up with the perfect date. At the reception, my sister grabbed the microphone and smugly announced she was the one he settled for first. What happened next? My date stood up, champagne glass raised, and flipped the entire night on its head. Before I share how this disaster became the best thing that ever happened to me, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever faced family betrayal or found love after heartbreak, this story is for you. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe because trust me, the revenge here is sweeter than wedding cake. I'm Paige Williams. 6 months ago, I had what anyone would call a perfect life. At 29, I was a senior marketing executive at one of Chicago's top firms, living in a stunning downtown apartment with my fiancé of 1 year, Cameron Hayes. We'd been together for 5 years before he proposed, and I remember every detail like it was yesterday. It was a sunset at Lake Michigan. Cameron had planned a private picnic on the beach, fairy lights twinkling between poles stuck in the sand. He prepared all my favorite foods and brought a bottle of the champagne we shared on our first date. When he got down on one knee, the last rays of sunlight caught the diamond ring, sending shimmering prisms across his nervous face. "Paige," he said, voice trembling, "you make ordinary moments extraordinary. I want a lifetime of those moments with you. Will you marry me?" I said yes through tears. We spent the evening dreaming about our future, wrapped in kisses and champagne bubbles. That memory used to be my safe place. Now, it felt like a story about strangers. My younger sister Vanessa and I had always been close, despite our competitive streak. She was the pretty one, with effortless charm. I was the responsible achiever. We balanced each other, or so I thought. Our parents, Linda and Robert, raised us to support one another, but sometimes their comparisons only fueled the rivalry. "Vanessa has your artistic talent, Linda," Dad would say. "But Paige has my business sense." I never worried about competing for men. Vanessa and I had completely different types. At least, that's what I believed until I came home early from a business trip to New York, hoping to surprise Cameron. I still had my key to his apartment. We planned to move in together after the wedding but kept our places separate for now. When I opened the door, the apartment was empty. Cameron's phone buzzed on the coffee table with incoming messages. I wasn't the snooping type, but something made me glance at Cameron's phone. The message previews on the screen made my stomach drop. "Miss you already. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to tell everyone about us." The sender? Vanessa Redart, my sister. I sat frozen, phone in hand, time slipping away like hours. When Cameron finally walked in with coffee and bagels, his face shifted from shock to guilt in an instant. "You're home early," he said, placing the breakfast bag down with trembling hands. "Apparently not early enough," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt inside, though everything was shaking beneath the surface. "How long, Paige? It's not what you think." "How long?" I echoed, twisting the engagement ring off my finger and setting it on the table between us. He sank onto the couch opposite me, running his hands through his hair. 3 months. It just happened, Paige. We never meant to hurt you. You didn't mean to hurt me." "Sleeping with my sister," I whispered. What followed was a blur of accusations, weak excuses, and painful truths. Cameron said he ran into Vanessa at a bar while I was away on a business trip. One drink led to talking, which led to a connection. He couldn't explain. The betrayal stung deeper with every detail. "I was going to tell you," he insisted. "When? Before or after the wedding?" I asked. The engagement ring sat cold and heavy between us. The family fallout was instant and brutal. My mother, Linda, tried to mediate, but it only made things worse. "These things happen, honey," she said during our first family meeting. "The heart wants what it wants." My father was furious, refusing to speak to Cameron and barely acknowledging Vanessa. "No daughter of mine would do this to her." "Sister," he shouted during a tense dinner when Vanessa announced they were officially together. "We can't help who we fall in love with," Vanessa said, reaching for Cameron's hand across the table. "I hope someday you'll understand and forgive us, Paige." I stopped going to family gatherings after that. The betrayal was too fresh, the wound too raw. I buried myself in work, ignoring calls from both my sister and my ex-fiancé. Friends tried to help, but most didn't know what to say. How do you comfort someone whose sister stole their future husband? The engagement ring sat in my dresser drawer, a painful reminder of broken promises. Some days, I thought about selling it. Other days, I imagined throwing it into Lake Michigan, where it all began. Mostly, I tried not to think about it at all. The 6 months that followed were a slow journey of healing and rebuilding. I moved into a new apartment, using decorating as therapy. I accepted a promotion at work that meant longer hours but gave me a welcome distraction. My boss, Jeffrey Parker, was surprisingly understanding. "Heartbreak's the worst performance killer," he said. "Take the time you need, but this corner office will be waiting when you're ready." I was grateful for the support, but the person who truly saved me was my best friend, Natalie Reynolds. The day after the breakup, she showed up at my door with ice cream, wine, and a fierce loyalty that got me through my darkest moments. "We're burning his clothes, changing her hair, and booking a trip somewhere with gorgeous men and strong cocktails," she declared, already pulling items from my closet that reminded her of Cameron. I didn't burn his clothes. I donated them instead. The trip, work kept me too busy, but I did start seeing Dr. Morgan Bennett, a therapist Natalie recommended. Our weekly sessions became my anchor in the storm. Betrayal from the people you trust completely creates a unique kind of trauma, Dr. Bennett explained. Give yourself permission to feel everything without judgment. I was trying to date again, accepting the occasional setup from well-meaning friends, but trust didn't come easily anymore. I found myself overanalyzing text messages, hunting for hidden meanings, questioning innocent comments. One promising connection ended abruptly when I accused a guy of flirting with a waitress who was just doing her job. I wasn't ready, but I was trying. Then the invitation arrived. It was a Tuesday morning, a cream-colored envelope with elegant gold lettering addressed to Miss Paige Williams and guest. The paper was thick, luxurious, with a subtle floral embossing around the edges. Inside, the invitation was just as elaborate. Together with their families, Vanessa Williams and Cameron Hayes request the honor of your presence as they unite in marriage. The wedding was just 5 weeks away. 5 weeks? They'd been together for 9 months? Tucked inside was a handwritten note on Vanessa's personalized stationery. "Paige, I hope you can be happy for us. It would mean everything to have my sister standing with me on the most important day of my life. Love always, Vanessa." I called Natalie immediately, barely able to get the words out through my tears. "They invited me to their wedding," I managed. "Who invited you to their wedding?" Natalie asked, confused. "Vanessa and Cameron." "What? Let me come over." "Don't do anything until I get there." 30 minutes later, Natalie arrived, took one look at the crumpled invitation on my counter, and poured us both generous glasses of wine despite it being barely noon. "This is either the most tone-deaf thing I've ever seen, or a deliberate power move," she said, examining the invitation. "Either way, you're not going." But as the day wore on and the weeks that followed, the pressure mounted. My mother called daily, her voice increasingly desperate. "Please, Paige, this rift in the family is breaking my heart. Your attendance would show such maturity and forgiveness." Even my father, my strongest ally, seemed to soften. "I don't like it any more than you do," he told me during a private lunch. "But she's still your sister and my daughter. I have to walk her down the aisle." He squeezed my hand across the table. "You don't have to come if it's too painful. I'll support whatever you decide." But it was my cousin Diana's call that pushed me over the edge. Always the family gossip. She couldn't wait to spill what everyone was saying. "The whole family is buzzing about whether you'll show up," she said, barely hiding her excitement. "Carol's convinced you'll make a scene, but Uncle Phil bet $50 you won't even attend because you're still heartbroken." That was when I made my decision. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of thinking I was still devastated. I wouldn't be the bitter ex who couldn't face seeing her former fiancé happy. I'd go to the wedding with my head held high, showing everyone that Paige Williams had moved on. The problem was, I hadn't. Not really. Natalie was horrified when I told her I planned to attend. "Have you lost your mind?" she demanded, pacing my living room. "This isn't maturity, it's masochism. I need to do this," I insisted. "I need to show them all I'm fine." Natalie stopped pacing and looked me dead in the eye. "Then we need to make sure you're better than fine. You need to be absolutely spectacular." What followed was what Natalie dubbed Operation Glow Up. She crafted a detailed plan for the weeks leading up to the wedding, complete with a calendar and progress tracker. "If you're going to walk into the lion's den, You're going to do it looking like a goddess and accompanied by the hottest man we can find," she declared. First on the agenda, finding the perfect dress. We hit every boutique in Chicago's Gold Coast, searching for something that balanced elegance with a hint of sexy, something that screamed confidence without saying a word. We finally found it in a small designer boutique, a crimson silk gown with a subtle side slit and an open back. It was sophisticated, yet undeniably eye-catching. "Red is perfect," Natalie said as I twirled in front of the mirror. "It says, I'm not in mourning and look what you're missing." Next came the physical transformation. Natalie booked us weekly spa treatments, facials, massages, the whole works. I started waking up at 5 a.m. for sessions with a personal trainer she recommended. By week 3, I could already see definition in my arms and felt stronger, both physically and mentally. A visit to an exclusive salon resulted in subtle highlights and a fresh cut that framed my face perfectly. The stylist, Antonio, worked magic on my neglected hair. "Breakups are terrible for the follicles, darling," he joked. "But men come and go. Great hair is forever." As I watched myself change in the mirror each day, I couldn't help but question it all. Was I really healing, or just crafting an elaborate mask to hide my pain? Was revenge through my appearance the answer, or was I buying into superficial values? Dr. Bennett helped me sort through those feelings in our sessions. "There's nothing wrong with wanting to look your best," she assured me. "The problem would be if you believed your worth depended on his reaction to your appearance. This event is triggering for you. Having some armor is reasonable." The final piece of the plan was finding the perfect date. Natalie suggested everyone from her cousin's roommate to a model she'd worked with on a marketing campaign. I vetoed them all. If I was bringing someone, it needed to be real. I didn't want to hire an escort or ask a friend to pretend it. Felt too desperate. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, I met Maxwell Thompson. It happened at a charity auction for Chicago Children's Hospital. My company had bought a table, and as the marketing executive, I was expected to attend. I was making small talk with a client when I literally bumped into him, spilling champagne down the front of his obviously expensive suit. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, grabbing cocktail napkins to dab the stain. "Don't worry about it," he laughed. "This suit needed to loosen up anyway, it's been stiff all evening." Maxwell was tall, dark-haired, with a smile that reached his eyes. He introduced himself as an architect recently returned to Chicago after several years abroad. "I've been away so long, I feel like a tourist in my own city," he admitted as we kept talking long after the champagne incident was forgotten. There was something immediately comfortable about our conversation, no awkward pauses, no forced topics. We discovered mutual connections. He knew my college roommate's brother and shared favorite spots around town. We both loved the same obscure bookstore in Wicker Park. When the event ended, Maxwell asked for my number. "I'd love to continue this over coffee sometime." Coffee turned into dinner the next evening, which turned into a Saturday spent exploring an architecture exhibit at the Art Institute. By our third date, I felt genuine smiles again, not the forced kind I'd worn for months. It was over dessert, at a small Italian restaurant, that I finally told him about the wedding. "My sister's marrying my ex-fiancé in 2 weeks," I said, bracing for awkwardness. Instead, Maxwell looked thoughtful. "That must be incredibly difficult. Are you planning to go?" I nodded and explained my complicated reasons. When I finished, he reached across the table and took my hand. "I have a proposition," he said. "Take me as your date." I stared at him. "We barely know each other. Why would you want to subject yourself to my family drama?" "First, I'm actually enjoying getting to know you, so this is a great excuse for another date. Second, I'm excellent at charming parents and making exes jealous, a skill I rarely get to use." His playful confidence made me laugh, and before I knew it, we were plotting our strategy over tiramisu and espresso. Maxwell suggested coordinating our outfits. Couples who color coordinate look established, and rehearsing basic details about each other's lives. "Your favorite book is Pride and Prejudice. Mine's The Great Gatsby." As our plan grew more elaborate, I felt a twinge of guilt. Was I using Maxwell? Despite our real connection, I was inviting him for strategic reasons. When I confessed, this Maxwell surprised me. "Paige, I'm going into this with open eyes." "Yes, there's definitely a bit of performance to this," Maxwell said, "but that doesn't mean what's developing between us isn't real." Sometimes the best relationships start in the strangest circumstances. As the wedding drew closer, I found myself looking forward to my time with Maxwell more than dreading the ceremony itself. Something genuine was blossoming beneath our carefully crafted alliance, something that made me wonder if Vanessa and Cameron's betrayal might just lead to something unexpectedly wonderful. The wedding weekend arrived with painful swiftness. Vanessa and Cameron had planned 3 full days of events at a luxury resort just outside Chicago, welcome drinks on Friday, rehearsal dinner on Saturday, and a family breakfast Sunday morning. Before the afternoon ceremony, "You don't have to attend everything," Natalie reminded me during our final pep talk. "The main event is torture enough, but Maxwell and I decided to go all in. If we're doing this, let's commit fully," he said. "Besides, the more comfortable we look together beforehand, the more convincing our story will be at the wedding." Friday night's welcome drinks were held at the resort's rooftop bar. Maxwell and I arrived fashionably late, giving me a few moments in the elevator to steady my breathing and remember Dr. Bennett's advice: focus on your breath when anxiety rises. 5 counts in, 7 counts out. The moment we stepped onto the rooftop, I spotted them, Vanessa in a white cocktail dress, laughing at something Cameron said to a group of guests. From a distance, they looked like the perfect couple. It wasn't until Maxwell squeezed my hand that I realized I'd been digging my nails into his palm. "You've got this," he whispered. "Let's get a drink first." We made it halfway to the bar before my mother spotted us and hurried over, arms wide open. "Paige, you came," Linda exclaimed, embracing me with an enthusiasm that felt almost rehearsed. She pulled back, eyeing Maxwell with clear curiosity. "And who is this?" she asked. "Mom, this is Maxwell Thompson." "Maxwell, my mother, Linda Williams." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Williams," Maxwell said smoothly, flashing the charm I'd come to know over the past weeks. "Paige speaks very highly of you." My mother practically glowed under his attention. "Please, call me Linda. How did you two meet?" "Paige hasn't mentioned anyone new," as Maxwell launched into the champagne spill story, making it sound far more charming than my clumsy reality. I caught Cameron watching us from across the terrace. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away, leaning down to whisper something to Vanessa. Her expression shifted quickly from surprise to assessment to forced cheerfulness as she headed our way. "Paige, you made it," she exclaimed, planting an air kiss near my cheek. "And with a friend. How lovely." "Maxwell Thompson," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "I'm Paige's boyfriend. Congratulations on your engagement." Boyfriend? We hadn't talked about using that word yet, but it felt right. Vanessa's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Thank you," she said, eyes flicking between us. "Cameron, come meet Paige's boyfriend." Cameron approached slowly, his usual confidence noticeably dimmed. "Good to see you, Paige," he said awkwardly. "It means a lot that you came." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied sweetly, making my mother raise her eyebrows. Maxwell offered his hand. "Maxwell Thompson, I've heard a lot about you." The two men shook hands, Cameron visibly sizing Maxwell up. I could practically see the silent comparison unfolding, and from his expression, Maxwell was winning. The rest of the evening was a delicate dance of polite conversation and strategic positioning. Maxwell charmed everyone he met, from my great-aunt Mildred to Cameron's college friends. I caught Cameron watching us several times, especially when Maxwell made me laugh or casually rested his hand on the small of my back. By the time we returned to our separate hotel rooms, we weren't really that close yet, despite the boyfriend label. I was emotionally drained, but surprisingly triumphant. "That went better than expected," I told Maxwell as he walked me to my door. "You were amazing," he said, "but tomorrow will be tougher. The rehearsal dinner is smaller, more intimate." He was right. Saturday's rehearsal dinner gathered the core wedding party in the resort's private dining room. I wasn't part of the wedding party, of course, but as immediate family, I was expected to attend. The seating plan placed Maxwell and me directly across from Cameron's parents, who had always adored me. "Paige, darling," Cameron's mother Margaret greeted me warmly, pulling me into a hug. "You look wonderful. We've missed you so much," Margaret said warmly, embracing me. Her husband, Gerald, nodded in agreement. "The house isn't the same without your Sunday visits," he added, casting a glance toward Vanessa, who was busy directing the catering staff. "Some things changed quickly for an old man like me," Gerald muttered quietly. "They're clear." Preference for me over Vanessa created a subtle but palpable tension, one that only grew as the speeches began. The traditional rehearsal dinner toasts quickly turned into an exercise in careful wording, as no one quite knew how to reference the couple's story without touching the uncomfortable truth. Thankfully, Cameron's best man, Trevor, broke the ice with humor. "I've known Cameron since college," Trevor joked, "and he's always been the most decisive guy I know, except when it comes to the restaurant menu or apparently the Williams family." The awkward laughter that followed eased the tension a bit, but I noticed Cameron's forced smile and Vanessa's hand tightening around her champagne glass. Something was clearly off between them. This became even more obvious the next morning at the family breakfast. Maxwell and I were sharing a table with my father when Cameron's parents joined us, deliberately choosing our table over Vanessa's, who sat with her bridesmaids. "How's work, Paige?" Gerald asked kindly. "Still killing it in marketing," I replied, updating them on my recent promotion. I caught my father watching me with a mixture of pride and sadness. When the others went for seconds at the buffet, he leaned in close. "I want you to know how proud I am of you, Pumpkin," he said softly, using the childhood nickname only he still used. "The way you're handling all this shows remarkable strength." "Thanks, Dad," I said, unexpectedly moved. He nodded, slowly. "I'm still disappointed in Vanessa," he admitted quietly. "I'm trying to support her because she's my daughter, but what she did, that's not how we raised you girls." "I know, Dad," I whispered. His eyes flicked toward Maxwell, who was chatting animatedly with my cousin across the room. "This new fellow seems like a good man. Much better fit for you than Cameron ever was, if you ask me." Before I could respond, Cameron approached our table, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Mr. Williams," he greeted my father with a nod, receiving only a curt return. "Paige, could I talk to you for a minute?" he asked quietly. My father tensed, but I placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "It's fine, Dad." I followed Cameron to a quiet corner of the terrace, keeping a careful distance. "What is it, Cameron?" I asked. He ran a hand through his hair, a familiar, nervous gesture, and said, "I just wanted to make sure you're okay with all of this." "I'm fine," I replied, colder than intended. "Maxwell and I are having a lovely weekend." "Yeah, he seems great." Cameron's tone said otherwise. "How long have you two been together? Does it matter?" I shot back. He glanced toward Vanessa, who was watching us intently from across the room. "I just want you to be happy, Paige. You deserve that." Something in his voice made me really look at him for the first time. The man I'd planned to marry looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes and that same tension in his shoulders from our most stressful times together. "Are you happy, Cameron?" I found myself asking. The question clearly caught him off guard. "Of course," he said too quickly. "Why wouldn't I be? It's my wedding day." Before I could answer, Vanessa appeared beside him, slipping her arm through his with a grip that was too tight. "What are you two talking about so seriously?" she asked, forced lightness in her voice. "Just catching up," Cameron said. "I should get ready. Big day." As he walked away, Vanessa lingered, her smile fading once he was out of earshot. "He's mine now," she said quietly. "Whatever you said won't change that." I was taken aback by the hostility in her voice. "I don't want him back, Vanessa." "Sure you don't," she scoffed, eyeing Maxwell across the room. "Your new boyfriend is quite the upgrade." Convenient timing. "This isn't a competition," I said, though we both knew in Vanessa's mind, it always had been. She laughed without humor. "It has always been a competition, Paige. You just never noticed because you were always winning." "Well, not anymore." As she walked away, a wave of sadness replaced the anger I'd been nursing for months. What had happened to us? We used to build blanket forts together and defend each other from playground bullies. Now, here we were exchanging veiled hostilities at her wedding to my ex-fiancé. That night, unable to sleep, I texted Maxwell. "I'm not sure I can go through with this tomorrow." He responded immediately. "Want to talk?" I'm still awake. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in the empty hotel bar, nursing nightcaps and my doubts. "I thought this would be satisfying," I confessed, showing up looking great with you on my arm, making them jealous. "But it just feels sad." Maxwell swirled the whiskey in his glass thoughtfully. "Can I tell you something? Something I've never shared before?" I nodded, curious. 3 years ago, I was engaged too, he said quietly. Her name was Rebecca. 2 months before our wedding, I found out she'd been seeing her coworker for almost a year. Maxwell, I'm so sorry. He shrugged, but the old pain in his eyes was clear. I declined the wedding invitation. We both laughed, breaking the tension. The point is, he continued, I understand betrayal. I understand wanting to show them you're better off. But at some point, you have to decide if you're doing this for them or for yourself. What do you mean? Are you attending this wedding to prove something to them or to prove something to yourself? I considered his question carefully. Maybe both. At first, it was to show them I wasn't destroyed, but now, I think I need to be there for me to close this chapter properly. Maxwell reached across the table and took my hand. Then that's why we'll go. Not for revenge, but for closure. When he walked me back to my room that night, our goodnight wasn't a rehearsed gesture, it was a kiss filled with the genuine connection that had been growing between us. For the record, Maxwell said as he pulled away, I'd be here even if there was no wedding. I'm in this for you, Paige Williams, Maxwell said quietly. As I drifted off that night, I realized my motivation had shifted. Tomorrow wasn't about getting back at Vanessa and Cameron anymore, it was about saying goodbye to what once was and embracing whatever lay ahead. The wedding morning dawned bright and clear, as if the universe itself was blessing the day I had spent months dreading. Natalie showed up early at my hotel, armed with makeup supplies and unwavering moral support. Last chance to back out, she said, spreading out her professional-grade cosmetics on the counter. We could be on a plane to anywhere by noon. I'm staying, I replied, feeling more confident than I had all weekend. But thanks for the escape option. Natalie studied my face closely. Something's different. You seem lighter. I had a good talk with Maxwell last night about closure and moving forward. She said with a teasing smile as she began working on my makeup. Just a good talk, huh? Well, maybe a good talk and a good kiss, I admitted, cheeks flushing. I knew it, Natalie squealed. From the moment I met him at the dress fitting, I could tell this was more than a revenge date. He couldn't take his eyes off you. As she expertly sculpted my face with contouring and highlights, I found myself genuinely excited for the day, not because of the wedding, but because of who would be by my side. 2 hours later, when Maxwell knocked on my door, his reaction made all the prep worth it. He stepped back, eyes wide as he took in the crimson silk gown, flawless makeup, and elegant updo Natalie had crafted. You are absolutely stunning, he breathed, awe clear in his voice. He looked sharp himself, in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit with a red pocket square that matched my dress exactly. Our coordinated look was subtle but unmistakable, marking us as a pair. Ready for this? He asked, offering his arm. As ready as I'll ever be, I said, linking mine with his. The ceremony was set in the resort's garden, with white chairs arranged neatly facing a floral arch. Maxwell and I were escorted to the third row on the bride's side, much more prominent seating than I expected. I could feel eyes on us as we took our places, whispers trailing behind. The garden quickly filled with guests in their spring best. Cameron's groomsmen took their spots, followed by Cameron himself, handsome but tense in his tuxedo. The string quartet began, and the procession started. Bridesmaids in pale pink floated down the aisle one by one. Then the music shifted to the classic wedding march, and everyone stood to watch Vanessa appear on our father's arm. She looked breathtaking in her fitted lace gown, her blonde hair swept up in an elaborate style dotted with tiny flowers. Our father's expression was a complex mix of pride and something I couldn't quite place as he walked her slowly toward Cameron. The ceremony was brief but traditional. I noticed Cameron stumble slightly over his vows, while Vanessa delivered hers with practiced perfection, her voice carrying clearly across the garden. When the minister asked if anyone objected, I felt Maxwell's hand tighten around mine. Several guests glanced nervously our way, but the moment passed without incident, and soon they were pronounced husband and wife. You okay? Maxwell whispered as they walked back down the aisle. Surprisingly, I was. Yes, I said softly, realizing it was true. The knot of anger and pain that had lived in my chest for months had loosened, not gone, but softened considerably. The cocktail hour on the terrace was my first real test. Without the ceremony's structure, guests were free to approach and comment. My mother's friends came first, their curiosity thinly veiled as concern. Such a brave face you're putting on, dear. Carol, my mother's best friend, said, patting my arm patronizingly. Not brave at all, I replied smoothly. Just Genuinely happy to be here with Maxwell. Maxwell deflected awkward comments with ease and charm, steering conversations away from the past and toward safer topics. His protective presence made everything more bearable. The most surprising interaction came from Cameron's best friend, Trevor, who found me while Maxwell got us drinks. "I owe you an apology, Paige," Trevor said sincerely. "I knew about them before you did. I should have told you. It wasn't your responsibility." His admission stung, but I nodded. "Still, you deserved better from all of us." He glanced toward Cameron, who was posing for photos with Vanessa. "For what it's worth, I'm not sure he made the right choice." Before I could respond, I overheard Vanessa's bridesmaids nearby, their voices loud enough to catch snippets. "Can you believe she actually showed up with that guy? Has to be hired. No way. She found someone that gorgeous so quickly." Cameron keeps watching them. "Vanessa's going to lose it if he doesn't stop." Maxwell returned, handing me a fresh champagne and positioning himself subtly between me and the gossiping bridesmaids. "Ready to head in for dinner?" They're opening the ballroom. The reception space was stunning: crystal chandeliers, elaborate floral centerpieces, and fairy lights twinkling from the ceiling. I recognized many details from my own Pinterest wedding boards, ideas I had shared with both Cameron and Vanessa during happier times. Maxwell and I were seated with my parents, my aunt and uncle, and surprisingly, Cameron's parents, a strategic seating plan that put me among allies rather than Vanessa's friends. The bride and groom entered to enthusiastic applause and took their seats at the elevated head table. Throughout dinner, I noticed Cameron's eyes drifting toward our table repeatedly, though he quickly looked away whenever our gazes met. After the main course, the traditional toasts began. Both the best man and maid of honor delivered sentimental speeches, carefully skirting the complicated history between the couple. Just as I was beginning to relax, Vanessa suddenly stood and took the microphone from the maid of honor. "I want to say something too," she announced, her voice slightly slurred from the champagne she'd been steadily drinking. An expectant hush fell over the room. This wasn't part of the planned program. "Everyone here knows how much I love Cameron," she continued, her gaze locking on me across the crowd. "What some of you might not know is the journey that brought us here." She paused, then added, "Sometimes the path to true love isn't straightforward. Sometimes you have to overcome obstacles to find your perfect match." My stomach tightened as her meaning became clear. Maxwell's hand found mine under the table. "Cameron and I were meant to be together," Vanessa declared, raising her glass. "Sometimes it takes a man a while to realize who he really belongs with. He might have settled for her first, but I'm the one he chose forever." A ripple of discomfort spread through the room as those familiar with our story exchanged uneasy glances. Others, unaware of the background, simply looked puzzled. My mother gasped softly beside me, while my father's face darkened with anger. Before I could fully process what was happening, Maxwell stood, champagne glass in hand. The room fell silent as he adjusted his tie and cleared his throat. "May I?" he asked, directing his question to Cameron rather than Vanessa. After a brief hesitation, Cameron nodded, curiosity and apprehension flickering across his face. "For those I haven't met yet, I'm Maxwell Thompson, Paige's date this evening," he began, his voice steady and warm. "First, congratulations to the bride and groom. Marriage is a profound commitment, one that demands courage and faith." He paused, smiling without faltering. "I've only known Paige a short time, but in that time, I've come to know a woman of extraordinary grace and strength. When she told me about this wedding, I was impressed by her decision to attend, to support her sister despite their complicated history." The room was completely still now, every eye on Maxwell. "What Vanessa said is true in one respect," he continued. "Sometimes we don't realize what's truly valuable until it's gone. But I must disagree with her conclusion." He looked at me, his expression softening. "From where I stand, I'm not Paige's consolation prize. I'm her upgrade." A whistle sounded from the back of the room, breaking the tension. Maxwell wasn't finished. "For those who don't know me, I recently returned to Chicago after designing the Elwood Tower in London and the Sato Museum in Tokyo. My work was featured in Architectural Digest just last month. Some of you might subscribe." Recognition dawned on many faces. Maxwell wasn't just any architect. He was an emerging star on the international stage, something I hadn't fully grasped until now. "But more importantly," he went on, "I'm the man lucky enough to be falling in love with Paige Williams. He raised his glass. Here's to new beginnings and to recognizing true value when we see it. Applause erupted as Maxwell sat down. Many guests now looked at me with renewed interest and respect. Cameron appeared stunned, while Vanessa's face flushed an angry red. Was that too much? Maxwell whispered as the band started playing, drawing attention away from our table. It was perfect, I replied, genuinely touched by his words. Did you mean it? About falling in love? His eyes met mine, serious despite his smile. Every word. The reception continued with the first dance and cake cutting, but the atmosphere had shifted noticeably after Maxwell's speech. Guests approached our table, many suddenly recalling Maxwell's architectural work or the Architectural Digest feature. Several of Cameron's business associates eagerly exchanged cards with him. You're quite the celebrity, I teased as another admirer walked away. Hardly, Maxwell replied with a self-deprecating smile. Architecture is a small world and Chicago is where I started. People remember. What they also remembered was the story of how Cameron had left me for Vanessa. With Maxwell's speech highlighting my grace in attending, the narrative was changing. I overheard sympathetic versions circulating and raised eyebrows toward the newlyweds. Cameron seemed to notice the shift too. His earlier confidence faded, replaced by a distracted demeanor. He checked his phone and scanned the room instead of focusing on his bride. Vanessa, meanwhile, worked hard to appear blissfully happy, her smile growing more forced as the hours passed. I need to use the restroom, I told Maxwell during a lull in the music. I'll be right back. The ladies' room was blissfully empty when I entered, giving me a moment of quiet to process the evening. I touched up my lipstick when the door suddenly burst open. Vanessa stormed in, clutching her wedding gown to move faster. What the hell was that? She demanded, slamming the door behind her. What was what? I asked, keeping calm as I reapplied lipstick. Your boyfriend's little speech making Cameron look like he downgraded and turning my wedding into your public redemption. I turned to face her fully. Maxwell was defending me after you publicly insulted me at your own wedding reception. What did you expect? She snapped, composure cracking. You always have to be the perfect one, don't you? Perfect. Paige, the one everyone loves, who never messes up, who makes me look bad just by existing. The raw pain in her voice caught me off guard. Is that really how you see me? How could I not? She shot back. Dad's favorite, mom's pride, straight A student, successful career. Everything's always so easy for you. Easy? I repeated, incredulous. Vanessa, nothing in my life has come easy. I work incredibly hard for everything I have. And in case you forgot, my fiancé left me for my sister 6 months ago. That wasn't exactly a highlight. Vanessa shot back. You had him for 5 years. I paused, seeing her differently for the first time, really seeing the deep resentment beneath her words. Do you know what it was like growing up as Paige Williams' little sister? Always living in your shadow, always the afterthought. Oh, you're Paige's sister? She's so accomplished. Her bitterness hung heavy in the air. So, you took Cameron to get back at me? I asked softly. Was it even really about him? Her anger seemed to ease just a little. It wasn't like that. Not at first. He talked about you all the time. Did you know that? Paige is so organized. Paige is so driven. I was sick of hearing it. Then one night, he actually listened to me, really saw me. She glanced down at her elaborate gown, twisting the delicate lace between her fingers. I did fall in love with him, but yes, part of me was thrilled to finally have something you wanted to be chosen over you for once. Her honesty hung between us, painful but oddly freeing. This wasn't really about Cameron, I said, gently. It was years of feeling unequal, a competition I didn't even realize we were in. I never saw you as less than me, Vanessa, I added. Different, yes, but it doesn't matter how you saw me. What matters is how I felt. Her eyes filled with tears, mascara threatening to run. And now I've ruined everything. My own wedding day, and I'm crying in the bathroom because I'm still jealous of my sister and her perfect new boyfriend. Despite myself, I reached out with a tissue. Your makeup will run. She took it, laughing weakly, still looking out for me, even now. Old habits, I replied with a small shrug. We stood in silence, the years of sisterhood and rivalry hanging between us. This wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but something like understanding. I should get back, Vanessa said finally. They'll be looking for me. I called after her as she reached the door. I hope you and Cameron will be happy. I mean that. She paused, her back to me. Your architect really loves you, you know. I can tell by the way he looks at you. She glanced over her shoulder, voice laced with both concession and sting. Cameron never looked at me that way. And then she was gone, leaving me with thoughts I hadn't allowed myself to consider before. Had Cameron ever really looked at me like that? And more importantly, did I want Maxwell to keep looking at me that way? When I returned to the reception, Maxwell was deep in conversation with my father. Both men laughed easily, and something warm and right stirred inside me. Everything okay? Maxwell asked as I slid back into my seat. Actually, yes, I said, surprising myself. I think Vanessa and I just had our first honest conversation in years. Before I could say more, Cameron appeared at our table, his expression uncertain. Paige, could I have a word? Maxwell raised an eyebrow, but I nodded reassuringly. It's fine, I'll be right back. Cameron led me to a quiet corner of the terrace. The music drifted distantly behind us as awkward silence settled. Your boyfriend seems like a good guy, he said at last. He is. You deserve that. Cameron shifted uncomfortably. Look, Paige, I know I hurt you badly. What? Vanessa said in there, that's not how I see things. You were never someone I settled for. Then why did you leave? The question burned inside me for months. I needed to know. He stared out into the dark gardens, gathering his thoughts. With you, everything was planned, structured. Our whole future was mapped out. With Vanessa, it was exciting, unpredictable. I thought that's what I wanted. His hesitation said everything. I made vows today. I'll honor them. I felt a surprising surge of pity. I hope you find happiness, Cameron. I really do. You too, Paige. He reached for my hand, then thought better of it. For what it's worth, I am sorry for everything. As he walked away, I felt nothing but relief. No lingering love, no desire to reconcile, not even much anger, just a clear certainty that this chapter was finally closing. Maxwell and I left the reception soon after, skipping the bouquet toss and grand exit. Hand in hand, we stepped away from the ballroom, the wedding music fading behind us. That was quite the exit we made, I said as we waited for the valet to bring his car. Everyone will be talking about it tomorrow. Let them talk, Maxwell replied, pulling me close as the cool evening air swirled around us. All that matters is what you think. I think, I said slowly, looking up at him. This fake date turned into something very real. It was never fake for me, he admitted, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. From the moment you spilled champagne on my favorite suit, I was a goner. As we drove away from the resort, windows down, warm spring air tussling our carefully styled hair, I laughed genuinely for the first time in months. The wedding I dreaded had become the start of something new and unexpected. My sister's betrayal had led me here to this moment with a man who looked at me like I was something precious. Life, it seemed, had a strange way of working out after all. This ring was unlike any other, a deep sapphire surrounded by delicate diamonds set in a vintage-inspired design. I'm not asking you to rush into anything, Maxwell said gently. We can have the longest engagement in history if that's what you want. I just want the world to know that I choose you today and every day after. Will you marry me? The moment was perfect in its simplicity. No flashy gestures for social media, no grand productions, just a man I had come to love offering a shared future. Yes, I said without hesitation, but I do want a long engagement. How long? He asked, slipping the ring onto my finger. Long enough to be sure, I replied. Long enough to build something real. We've already started, he smiled, pulling me up to kiss me as my family cheered around us. Later that night, driving home, I reflected on the unlikely journey that led me here. 6 months ago, I had been shattered by betrayal, convinced my life was falling apart. Now, I was heading toward a future brighter than anything I'd imagined. Penny, what are you thinking? Maxwell asked, reaching for my hand across the console. I was just thinking how sometimes the worst things lead to the best things, I said, watching the city lights blur past. If Vanessa hadn't sent that wedding invitation, I'd like to think we would have found each other anyway, Maxwell finished. Maybe at another charity event, or through mutual friends. You think so? I know so, he said, squeezing my hand. Some people are meant to find each other, no matter the path. As we planned our future together over the following months, I realized he was right. The betrayal that once felt like the end of my world had actually been the start of something real and strong. I had learned to value myself, set healthy boundaries, and open my heart to genuine love. My sister had stolen my fiancé and sent me a wedding invitation, thinking it would be the final victory in our lifelong competition. Instead, it became the first page of the best chapter of my life, a chapter written not in spite, rivalry, or revenge, but in self-discovery, growth, and love. Sometimes the most unexpected invitations lead us to the most beautiful destinations. If you've ever faced betrayal or heartbreak and wondered if happiness is still possible, let me assure you it is. Often, even greater happiness than you had before. Have you ever had something painful turn into an unexpected blessing? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe for more stories, and share this message with someone who might need it today. Remember, sometimes what feels like an ending is just the beginning of something better. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I wish you all the courage to turn your own painful chapters into beautiful new beginnings.